The time is now. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're going to cover on today's show. Right here with you. One of the greatest streaming television battles of our time is seemingly over, as Amazon and Google have apparently called a truce. We'll tell you what that means for you. And another day, another foldable screen rumor and render. This one, however, moves beyond the phone and tablet arena, moves into a pretty awesome watch. And the Cult of the Dead Cow is one of the most legendary hacker groups of all time. And we have author Joseph Menn on to tell us about his new book and why corporations should listen to hackers. And it's the anniversary of one of the most legendary video games ever, spawning a worldwide empire and forever influencing the video game landscape as we know it. We will give you the details on that and so much more on today's Digital Trends Live. There it is, Sam. Portland, Oregon.
It's nice to be back.
It is. Yeah,
And
it's been a while since you've been here.
I can see like the horizon, so it's always, I consider that a good thing when I can see mountains and things.
There are mildly less clouds than normal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
all
like
for
I
you.
brought good weather.
Yeah, I hope you know we did this for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very big deal here today.
I am
Hello, everyone.
so humbled.
It's a very big deal in the world of tech. Thank you for joining us. This is Digital Trends, our live show here every weekday at Digital Trends, where we bring you the trending tech topics of the day, news, headlines, interviews, and so much more, all while broadcasting live. And we love having those conversations with you. We're broadcasting live on Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, Twitch. We're on YouTube Live. We're on LinkedIn Live. We're on Dailymotion, Apple News. We're on 2 different mobile apps. We're on a smart TV app. And we're at digitaltrends.com/live. That's a lot of different places you can find us. Want us a different place? Send us a message. We'll find that place too. But what we can do is have these conversations with you. So drop in your comments, your questions as we go through. Hello to Mikey. He's joining us on Facebook. Nice of you to be here today. So thank you for that. And we've got lots of different comments that we could take as we go through the show. But to start off, I'm Greg Nibbler, joined by Mr. Sam Slaughter. Hello, Sam.
Hello, how's it going?
I want to give some emphasis upon your name there.
I like it.
Yes, and we also have a very Sam Slaughtery shirt. I want to make sure there's a note of that. The beard is on point. We've got the whole Sam Slaughter package going here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty proud.
Well, good. Well, we can take comments. If you have comments about Sam, drop those in. Or if you want to talk about tech, that's fine too. Let's go to some trending tech topics. Let's kind of work our way through some of these. Definitely some things that people are talking about today. First off is this, the Google-Amazon streaming television war. It's finally, maybe, come to an end. And this is what the announcement was.
I think if I've learned anything from movies, though, that it's not over. This is just like the teaser at the end of a movie, and everything's going to blow up soon. But for now, it seems great.
It looks fine, but then, in the post-credits, we're going to find out something else. Well, here's what's going on. So as you know, if you have an Amazon Fire device or a Chromecast, Chromecast has not had the Prime Video app on it because of the battle between Google and Amazon. And the Amazon Fire TV stick has not had YouTube TV on it. So now, finally, it looks like on July 9th, the official YouTube app on Amazon Fire TV is going to be available worldwide on almost all Fire TV devices. There's a few more that will have to roll out later on this year, but it's finally going to be available on there. And then, in turn, Chromecast is now going to have Prime Video support.
I think it's great. I mean, I have a Fire TV at home, and that whole going through getting to YouTube via the internet app, it takes those extra 10 seconds that I don't need, that I want back.
Right. I mean, well, at this point, it seems ridiculous because, for the most part, probably everybody's using all of these apps. We all want to be able to utilize them, and it sucks if one of them you can't use all of your services on.
And then it just eats at you, and you get more annoyed with it. So just making it easier and opening it up, I think, is a great idea. At least for now, until Disney and whatever else, all of these other ones come out. And we see how that then shifts it. Yeah,
and I think that's a big motivation probably of why they're finally willing to just be like, all right, fine, you can put it on our app, we'll put ours on your app, is because of that, because of the looming threat of more streaming television services. You have Disney Plus, which is going to be huge. I mean, Disney Plus is going to disrupt a lot of that industry, just coming in at $6.99 a month. I mean, I'm sure it'll go up within the year, but starting off with that's going to eat away at what people are doing. And all these existing streaming services are trying to make sure they're up to the battle, up to par when it comes into it. And you've got Apple TV that's going to be coming out, and then YouTube for them, because they have their YouTube Live service, which I haven't subscribed to that. I don't know if you subscribe to it.
I don't either, no.
I'm actually on PS.
Because there's everything else there that I can sort of pick and choose from.
Yeah, I mean, really, the only reason for me for live television is sports or news, I guess. But there's a lot of different ways you can get that. And I guess for certain channels, you have to have the live television subscription to get even the on-demand. Mm-hmm. But yeah, YouTube, that's one of their big battles because they're going against Hulu for that, also Disney,
yep.
And a number of different services for their side. So that's why they want to have the most devices possible. And that seems to make sense. And I hope that's the way it is going forward when it comes to home assistants or any kind of home, streaming device, that they just open it up for everybody and then let the best one win.
Yep.
I like that idea. That may not be the best profit idea for some of them.
I'm sure it's not, but being that we're the consumers,
right.
That makes it easier for us and then makes us want to support X, Y, or Z because it does that for us, whether it's Disney, whether it's YouTube, any of those. I'd rather let them fight it out, all offer the same kind of general quality and service to me,
right,
and then go from there.
Yeah, and just have that be the consumer's choice. And I want to know what people think. Is this something that's finally relieves some frustration for you? If you're a Fire TV Stick user or if you're a Chromecast user, what do you think about that? Is this something that's really been eating at you, or maybe you've just kind of moved on and found different services because you didn't have that one on your particular device? And that's another way too that I feel like some of these companies could really lose out.
Yeah.
Is if you're not off. I mean, let's be honest. It's Chromecast and Fire TV Sticks. They're huge, and then you have Roku, which I believe has both on there. So there's certainly something to be said for that as far as which one's going to have the most users.
Yeah, and I think it'll also come down to price and how the price plays out over the next few years.
Yeah, that is true too. Well, a lot to decide on that. So that's definitely some big news, and that's been trending today, all day so far, as far as that. So again, YouTube TV now going to be available on Fire TV devices, and Chromecast will now allow Prime Video to be on those. So let us know what you think in the comments as we go through the show. All right, speaking of comments, it is now time for Read 'em and Weep, where we take a look at some of the comments that have come across our many different platforms, and we answer them directly to you and let you know what we think about that. And sometimes, there's a little bit of crying. Sometimes there's tears of joy or sadness. You never know what's going to happen, Sam.
Maybe a little bit of both. I like a little bit of both.
We like to mix it up a little bit. Christopher, regarding Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak, wants you to get off Facebook. This article brought to you by Facebook, which you are clearly all on still. I appreciate that a lot because it's so funny when you see so many people commenting on Facebook like, oh, these are stupid clickbait things and this is mass media. It's like, well, you're on Facebook too.
Literally clicking it. And making sure that everyone knows that you have clicked it or read the headline and pretended to click it.
Right. I mean, Christopher, I agree with that. Now, as far as that article in particular, Steve Wozniak's against Facebook. And it's a pretty great article that we've got up, just kind of explaining some of that. Yeah, that's where it's at.
He also will never have a public profile or he's above having a Facebook profile.
Exactly.
He doesn't need to be on it.
That's a very good point.
He can do whatever he wants.
Right. Yeah. You're Steve Wozniak. You don't have to worry about. He's not worrying about selling anything or promoting himself.
It's like if he were single or whatever. It's not like he would be on Tinder.
That's true. That would be kind of weird. Steve Wozniak. A picture of him with an Apple computer. Remember me? All right, Marcus, regarding Vizio P series, Quantum X review, easily Vizio's best yet. You guys really need to record these reviews at 1440p and up. I can't really see much, and being an electronics channel, please invest in better equipment. It's the smartest thing you could do, SMH. I believe we do actually film these at a higher rate. I'm wondering if this is somebody's specific device that may have scaled
Perhaps
that down.
A connection issue.
Marcus, I mean, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the SMH at the end with the ... just to imply that, you're shaking your head. There could be more that you'd want to say, but you're not sure where you want to go with it, and you kind of want us to interpret it and respond. So I assume that, this is what happens after that if this were to continue on. This would be the dialogue right here.
It's either that or he's just quietly and sadly walking away.
Oh, it's walking away. That could be it, too. Yeah, shake my head, ... off into the distance. Well, Marcus, you taught us a lesson right there. Thank you very much for that information. I appreciate that.
I like learning things.
Yeah, you've learned something here, Sam. That's the most important part of this segment, is to learn something. Amuro, the J.A. game, I don't even know.
Agamemnon?
Yeah.
Like the Greek guy. The
is that what that is?
Agamemnon?
Sure.
Wasn't he involved in a big fight?
Sounds good to me.
All right,
let's go with that. Regarding this robot feeds you tomatoes while you run. French fries. You misspelled French fries. Pardon me as I sit on my fat on the couch. I can sit on my shoulders with the rest of my burdens because there is always room for French fries. Okay, I'm confused on what's happening here.
I have no idea what's going on.
Can you interpret what you think is happening with this?
I believe there was a typo.
Okay.
Perhaps the F in French was not capitalized.
Possible. And that's an issue. Okay.
Perhaps he's of the sort that believes they should be called freedom fries.
Okay.
Although then he would have put freedom fries in the second sentence, so I'm going to go with that's probably not it.
Okay. Rolling that out.
But that doesn't even begin to get at the second half of this. The burden and the room. Mm-hmm. I've got nothing.
Yeah. Okay, well, these are all different ways that we could be, interpreting this, and I think it's open to interpretation for everybody. It's being noted that possibly it's because he wants the tomatoes to be French fries while you run, and that's also something. I mean,
French fried tomato. I did see there
French fried tomatoes. That's another possibility there too.
There is a brand doing hot dogs made out of carrots these days.
That just why? Why would you do that?
It's in. Kobayashi is doing it, so...
Kobayashi's eating, that's what he's gone down to? He lost the hot dog eating contest enough times?
Yeah,
now he's going to carrot eating contest?
Yes. It looks like a roasted carrot.
Oh, man. That's going to make a great 30 for 30 at some point of how his fall to carrots. But anyway, we got off onto something else there. Regardless, yes, French fry feeding robot. I'm in. I prefer tacos, though. But all right, Forrest. Regarding Sony X950G unboxing and basic setup, the best Sony TV you might actually buy. Man, I could watch you unbox and explain all day long. I fully realize you'd rather not do that all day long. So I had to change the tone there once I realized what was going on. Is this for Caleb? I believe that's probably a Caleb device. Is that a television, the X950G? Caleb has some big time fans.
I think
on YouTube.
That it's not I don't think it's the sinister thing. I think he wants it to happen all night long.
Oh, I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
gotcha.
You did it, Sam. There it is. You broke Read 'em and Weep.
My work here is done.
Yeah, I know. I agree. Well, Forrest, I bet we can get an arrangement next time that Caleb is here on the show. I'll make sure he gives Forrest Proctor a shout out and a wink, maybe. All right. Len Denbrock, regarding AMD Ryzen 9 3900X review. Most games hardly use 4 cores nowadays, as most games are written for consoles, not PC. Spend your money on the GPU, where all the magic happens. All right. Okay. I can kind of see
Noted.
That yeah, noted.
I will do that.
Sam, what gaming console do you use?
I have a PlayStation 4.
Yes, I do as well.
I play a lot of Borderlands.
Borderlands, okay.
Yeah.
Any Red Dead?
Oh, I've already been through that one, yeah.
Okay. Do you put a beard into your avatar when you play?
Of course.
Okay, all right. Well, we determined that. If you have questions about Sam's avatar, drop those in there. Otherwise, thank you for your Read 'em and Weep comments. We do appreciate those as we go through the show, and every day we do read them. And that's just to make sure that you know we read the comments here at Digital Trends. And before we go on to some news, I want to tell you about something else as well. I want to make sure that you are aware of what's coming up on Monday. It's a big day. It's a big 2 days, and it is Amazon Prime Day. It's almost upon us. It starts on, Sunday night Pacific time, midnight. So midnight, Monday morning, technically. Midnight is when that happens. It's going for 2 days, 48 hours this year. So it's Prime Day. Then you can put an apostrophe with an S at the end. But Prime Day. And Prime Days, and it's 2019 Prime Day, so it kicks off midnight, Monday, July 15th. The longest Prime Day yet, like we said, 48 hours. A couple of things to be aware. The 4K television deals are usually spectacular. They're amazing 4K television deals. And the one issue is sometimes those go pretty fast. So you want to be aware of that. You want to be up to date on what the best deals are. And we have you up to date at digitaltrends.com. We've got our editors following along. Caleb Dennison actually really keeps on top of this to make sure that you know which 4K TV deals are the best deals to get. And so we've got that there at Digital Trends. Like another example would be smart homes. Those ones usually last a lot longer, the smart home assistants. So those will go a little bit longer where you'll be able to pick those up. But the 4K televisions, stay on top of that and stay on top of all of the deals for Prime Day at digitaltrends.com. Of note, we're going to be having a special 4-hour broadcast on Monday, July 15th in honor of Prime Day, where we're going to have all of our editors circling through, and they're going to be telling you about some of their favorite deals, all while keeping our website up to date as well. So lots to work on with that, lots to keep you up to date, a lot of great deals. You're going to want to pay attention to that and make sure you don't miss out on anything, and that's why we have our Amazon Prime Day coverage. Follow along at digitaltrends.com and watch us Monday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific, where we'll bring you all of the deals live as well. All right, let's talk about some more news here. And we've got another foldable screen rendering. And this has been kind of a theme that's been going for the last couple of weeks, where we see a lot of renders and leaks based on patents regarding foldable technology. We know that Samsung has their Galaxy Fold that may be finally coming out later on this year. Huawei Mate X, but every other company is working on them. And this is actually one that's a little more unique than any that we've seen so far. And it's coming from IBM, of all people. And IBM, it's a patent that they filed, and they do specify that they file a lot of patents. That's one of their claims to fame, is that they file a ton of patents every year. And this is one that was filed, and then Let's Go Digital, which is a website, I believe a Dutch website, that takes a look at this and then takes the patents and renders out what it would look like. So that's a watch right there, where it folds out, in one aspect it folds out to 4 separate screens, and then you can double that and fold it out to 8 screens. Sam, what do you think about this kind of technology, and how do you feel about foldable screens?
I know for a fact that I will never be a consumer of these because I would break them.
Yeah?
It looks cool. I think for certain people, like I don't have an Apple Watch, I don't have anything like that to begin with.
No
I don't have
smartwatches?
a smartwatch. I don't have.
Do you have a smart home assistant?
It doesn't stay plugged in.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
It sits on a shelf. I do have one. It sits on a shelf, though.
Okay. Just wanted to establish that. But then going forward, back to the smartwatch, you don't have a smartwatch, but you wouldn't want to utilize something like this.
No, I think I would end up just breaking it too easily. And I also wonder, I mean, if these are going to be stacked, like pages in a book or something like that, I feel it would be pretty bulky. And if it's not, I think they would be way too thin, and again, I wouldn't trust myself.
Okay, well, that's a fair way. I mean, I would probably break it too, but I still want it. I mean, I would like the idea of just being able to fold it out and walk around and, like, sci-fi style, type in things, get the controls going, and then fold it back up. I like this idea of a foldable technology. I think it looks pretty cool to me. I want to know what people think as well. But yeah, that's the patent that's come out now for IBM.
I did not know IBM had so many patents, like 9100.
9100
this year, last year alone.
Last year. I know 9100 patents.
I know most of them are probably very small things, but that is such just a gigantic number. I want to know some of the ones that they don't bring out.
That they don't render. Yeah,
like
9100
technologies or.
Yeah, it's one of the things IBM prides themselves on is setting in so many patents. But this one in particular, I just like that people are thinking outside of the box when it comes to what we can do with these screens. Like I said, the Samsung one, when it comes out, I mean, I think that phone will be cool. It's probably not something I'm going to get, and especially not at that price of whatever it is, $2,600. But different companies utilizing this technology and how it's going to be utilized, I love seeing these different patents and these different renders of what people are going for. Would you use a foldable phone?
I think I would try it. I mean, with any of these things, looking back to like my first iPod or something like that, I was holding out and then eventually doing it because it becomes so it's everywhere. You know, I can see that this happening with foldable technology and whatever as metals get stronger and thinner and whatever, and all of that kind of stuff progresses. So maybe in 10, 15 years I would be adopting it, but I'd rather just wait and see and let everyone else figure it out first.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand. Well, I mean, I certainly don't want to pay it for it right up front, but the idea of the technology I think is still cool. But that's what IBM's patent rendering is. We've got a great article at Digital Trends on that. That's a big trending story actually today, is about this, just because it's something that's a little bit different than we've seen. And who knows if this ever comes to fruition, the likelihood of it actually being developed and created into a product, probably not really high, but a concept like that could be utilized for something else. And I think seeing that in the foldable watch, or a smartwatch category, but with that kind of style, expanding the screen on a watch, I think that's a pretty unique concept. So I would like to see some more companies see what they can do with that and where that goes. But again, that's taking a look at that. You can follow along at digitaltrends.com with that story. Continuing on, we've got something else. Autonomous taxi rides are something that a lot of us are going to be able to experience before too long, but you can experience it right now in Arizona with Waymo. And Waymo's been doing this in Phoenix for a while. There's a rider along with it and a security driver, but technically, it's the car driving itself. And Waymo is in competition with Uber, with Lyft, with all kinds of ride-sharing services to try to get your business. And one of the things that they're working on right now is testing out different ways that they can add on bonuses for being in their car. One of them being free Wi-Fi service for its riders. Sam, you travel a lot.
I do.
You probably use a lot of ride sharing.
I do.
What are some of the perks that would be important to you?
The one that I saw in here was the eliminating the overly talkative driver.
Eliminating the overly talkative driver. That is something that we have talked about here on the show before, and there's actually a study. So Reuters did a study on this, and yeah, overly talkative drivers and poor driving skills are some of the most common complaints that people have. And so the overly talkative driver.
And I do think I see the benefit of the Wi-Fi, especially if you're coming from an airport or something, and either you're in a different country or just a place where maybe your cell phone provider doesn't work well. Being able to connect with friends, loved ones, whatever, like, hey, I'm here, be at the office in 20 minutes, just to kind of get caught up on whatever you didn't do on the plane. That's the way that I view that, and I could see that being beneficial.
I think that's great. One of the other things that they're trying out is ad-free music streaming through the vehicle speakers via Google Play Music. I'm with you on too much talking. Generally speaking, it's fine, but sometimes, you get the driver that's just talking way too much, and I'm just like,
4 in the morning airport ride.
Yeah, like,
the last thing
buddy,
I want to do is talk to someone.
Yeah, it's like, you've been drinking coffee all night. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to sit here, I'm going to take a look at my phone, and get caught up. But also, control of the music. That's been an issue for me before, where I
don't mind it. Maybe I've never had a terrible experience with that, but I tend to listen to just random stuff anyway. So if something comes on, I think I would draw the line at 1 or 2 genres, but...
I think specifically it's some of the talk radio stations that I've had to listen to when I'm in
That's fair.
cars, where I'm like, I'm all right, I'm good on that.
Living in South Carolina, the talk radio is very specifically aimed a lot of the time, and so that does get a little annoying at times.
Right. And for everybody watching too, what's the one thing, like, what would be a perk that you would want in a ride sharing service that you don't have right now? I mean, I think I love that Waymo's doing this, because I feel like if that's going to push anybody else, and granted, it is just in Arizona right now. Keelan just said problem is that you have to go to Arizona. True.
There's a wonderful food scene in the Phoenix area. So if you're out there,
there's
plenty
Phoenix
of good food.
Yeah, Phoenix is fine, but you'd have to live in Phoenix to take advantage of this. However, Waymo actually ordered, and I'm taking a look at this, 60,000 additional minivans to scale up their autonomous taxi services. So I would expect this to start rolling out, at least in, let's say, in more sunny states. I doubt you're going to see it up north for a while, because the weather issues that come with these autonomous vehicles could show up. But I'm sure, Arizona, Texas, down in Florida, I know they're starting. So probably California as well. You'll start to see more and more of these as they roll out. But they're trying to compete directly with Uber and Lyft, and they want to take your services by adding on the free Wi-Fi and ad-free music streaming to the vehicle speakers. So
the only thing I worry about with the security guy or security person, what if they then start talking to me? Like, the driver is eliminated, but then the security person can start talking to me, and then you're right back where you started.
Right back there. But you know how bored that person must be?
Oh, I'm sure.
They just sit there. They have to pay attention, but they're not actually driving, so it's just staring straight ahead the entire time. Like, nope, nothing wrong. Yeah, that does not sound like a fun job. Anyway.
Unsung heroes of the automatic driving world.
There they are. Well, that's one last. that's what Waymo's doing to try to lure your business to their ride-sharing service. All right, one final story here, and this is one that was trending that I just wanted to bring up, and it has to do with perseverance. It has to do with sticking to it and making sure you complete your tasks. You set a goal for yourself and you do it. And it has to do with a grandmother who beat The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess after 755 hours of playing that game. 755 hours. This was originally posted on Reddit. It was this lady's grandson, her grandson Chris. Chris said that his grandma has been playing this game for 755 hours. There's a video of her actually playing it right there. She has been working on this for years. I mean, you think 755 hours. It's about 11 years that she was playing that game before she finally finished it. Wow. And they actually they posted just a picture of the 755 hours. There it is, right there, the total play time. Can you imagine how spending that many hours on any one video game?
No.
Yeah.
I like that she consulted, like she called them, she consulted guidebooks and all of these other things.
Guidebooks, videos. Apparently she wrote Nintendo one time for a previous game she was playing, and they sent her a physical map
I love
so
that.
she could look through it. Yeah, I think this lady's awesome. So she finished the game, took a picture, of the accomplishment, and then actually asked if Nintendo offered any rewards for the longest time ever to finish a game.
And I think with that, I think Nintendo has to do something just because it's gone onto social. We're talking about it for a reason. I think they have to do something. I would love if in the next Zelda game, they made her into a character in one of the villages where you go up to her, you talk to her. Either she sells you something for like 755 rupees, or she gives you a speech about perseverance, something like that, that can just be put in there and so that she knows her legacy is complete.
I like it, yes.
755 years ago, the knights visited our village.
Yes, I think that has to happen. Nintendo, come on. I think this is something that you need to do right now. But you can read about that at digitaltrends.com. I know we're out of time. I know we need to get to a break. Sam Slaughter from themanual.com. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And what we're going to do now is we've got a lot more coming up for you here. Need to get to a break because coming up next, we're going to be joined by Anurag Lal from Infinite Convergence, which is a wonderful name for a company. I like that. He's the president and CEO. Going to talk about that. Going to talk about some security flaws in apps, what we can do to protect ourselves, where that's going to go. In particular, WhatsApp has that security flaw or had that, and how that's going to affect how we use it, what they're going to do in the future. All kinds of conversations to be had about that. We're broadcasting live. We can certainly take your comments, your questions as we go through. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Don't forget we have our Prime Day coverage coming up on the 15th. So we'll have a great broadcast for you and lots of coverage at digitaltrends.com. I also want to say that we broadcast every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you tech headlines, news, conversations, and discussing things that matter to you. And that's what we're going to be talking about right now. I'm Greg Nibler, joining us the president and CEO of Infinite Convergence. It is Anurag Lal. Hello.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Doing great. First off, thanks very much for joining us. There's a lot to discuss with this when it comes to security of our devices and privacy concerns that we all have as technology becomes more and more, prolific in all parts of our lives. But to give everybody just a little bit of background, could we talk about you and how you got into this, and then a little bit about Infinite Convergence as well?
Sure. I've spent about 30 years now developing different types of technologies in different environments, from large organizations to startups, and delivered those technologies and capabilities to enterprise and mobile operators across the globe. That's really my background. Along the way, I also had an opportunity to be part of President Obama's National Broadband Task Force, which allowed us to really develop recommendations for broadband prevalence and availability across the United States. So that was a great opportunity to really serve the nation. Outside of that, Infinite Convergence is really in the business of delivering messaging solutions to enterprises across the globe. And by messaging, I mean mobile messaging. We've seen mobile messaging becoming extremely important in an end user's day-to-day interaction with their smart device and as a means of communication. And with that prevalence, there's become a huge requirement to make sure that there's adequate security when mobile messaging is leveraged within the enterprise. And so that's what we do. We deliver very robust, secure, encrypted messaging platforms to the enterprise. We call it NetSphere. And enterprises use this as a means to communicate both internally within their employee base as well as externally. So again, from the ground up, we architected the solution to be secure and encrypted, and that's allowed us to really give enterprises the means to leverage mobile messaging as a powerful means to communicate and take that as but also do it in a manner that's secure and essentially confirmed, if you may.
I think that's so important. I mean, so much of our lives now are on our smart devices, on our smartphones. I mean, that's where we communicate. That's where people search the web. That's where they send their messages, and even on that enterprise aspect as well. So much of that is there, and security is such a concern. I want to maybe get your expertise to talk about a couple of specific ones that have gone on, and maybe get your opinions on that and where it's going. In particular, the WhatsApp security flaw, which I feel like a lot of people use WhatsApp thinking it's the very secure way to communicate back and forth, and now even going forward, maybe even with some commerce on there. Can you tell us what that flaw was and what's being done about it, and maybe how that's going to affect everybody?
Absolutely. So let me talk about the flaw specifically, and then maybe take a step back and see how WhatsApp got where they're currently at. So the flaw was essentially a third-party application was able to take advantage of a vulnerability within the WhatsApp architecture, where they could overflow the memory buffer of the application by making a voice call. And using that, they were able to implant some software within the platform that compromised the information that was being exchanged by that user within that WhatsApp environment. Now, there's a third-party software that was used to do this, which has been primarily developed for federal agencies, law enforcement agencies, and governments to be able to gain access to such information. But in this particular case, it was not necessarily used in that manner. But what it really brought to bear and really put on the forefront was a huge problem within WhatsApp, where a simple call, and a call didn't necessarily have to go through, even a missed call, could implant this particular piece of software, which would compromise the communication back and forth within the WhatsApp environment, thereby compromising everything that WhatsApp stood for. Now, how did that happen and how did we get there? It's important to note, if you go back in time, WhatsApp was actually developed as a communication platform that offered the promise of free SMS or free mobile messaging. That was its essential promise. It was targeted and aimed at the consumer, and it was never meant to be anything more than that. Now, along the way, the founders at WhatsApp recognized the need for security and for keeping these conversations secure and encrypted. So they kind of bolted on some level of encryption. Now, when you bolt on a capability to a platform that had been pre-architected and pre-engineered for a different purpose, the solution is not robust enough. You never develop a solution that's robust enough. So even though the intentions of the founders were good, and I think they did that because of their fear that some of this information could be exploited just within Facebook itself, but the intentions were good, the outcome may not have been 100%. And this particular flaw clearly makes my point, where even though they said the conversation was encrypted, the flaw allowed that conversation to be compromised, whereby putting that information out in the public domain. So again, the platform was never meant to be a secure platform. That came after the fact. As a result, we are seeing these problems now.
Well, I think it's really an interesting way to look at it and see where it's going to go. I find that fascinating, bolting it onto what was previously there, and now they have to work backward and figure out how to fix those flaws. And that's certainly something that you have expertise in with Infinite Convergence. I feel like we could talk about this for hours, but I want to know, for people who are out there wanting to know more about your company and more about what you do, how can they follow along with Infinite Convergence?
No, absolutely. And thank you for that question. We recognized quite some time ago that mobile messaging is going to become really important in an end user's day-to-day interaction and means of communication. And we figured, even though that was initially consumer behavior, we believed that would very quickly encroach into the enterprise environment. And that was the problem we felt that would need to be solved, because enterprises, when they communicate, have a certain expectation of security and have a certain expectation of maintaining integrity of those conversations. So we developed a platform that we refer to as NetSphere, and this platform was developed from the ground up to be inherently secure. And it was done so to ensure that we encrypted all aspects of the interaction within that application. So on one side, we recognized the importance of mobile messaging, and we recognized how consumer mobile messaging was encroaching into the enterprise environment, thereby compromising the enterprise. But we believe that by delivering NetSphere as a platform that gave them security, gave them the assurance, while giving them the same feature functionality that they had gotten used to and they like, we believe that would be a home run for the enterprise. And so that's essentially what we've been delivering. Today, NetSphere is being used by enterprises across the globe. It is extremely robust, very, very user-friendly, but at the same point of time, very sophisticated in the way it offers it's a secure experience to the enterprise. We have built encryption algorithms that ensure every aspect of the conversation is secure, not only from point A to point B, but also secure on the device. We ensure that the information is secure and encrypted at rest. So at no point in a transaction is there a vulnerability that can be taken advantage of so that information comes out in the public domain. Now, enterprises have been adopting that because they have seen the likes of WhatsApp and WeChat and others encroach into their enterprise communication. So for them, it's a home run. And we've seen that feedback, which has been extremely heartening from enterprise IT organizations who were flustered and who were quite concerned that this problem had encroached into the enterprise and they didn't really have a solution that took care of it.
Well,
so NetSphere delivers that solution and does that very effectively.
It sounds like you've definitely been working on that from the ground up, which is, I think, a really important lesson that we've learned from this. Is that's a great way to handle the security. Security concerns are going to be a concern for all of us going forward, and privacy issues. Anurag, I want to say thank you very much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live to discuss this.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Definitely. All right, so that was Anurag Lal, President and CEO of Infinite Convergence, talking about security of our messaging services. All right, we need to take a break. We've got Matt Katz joining us, going to talk about some news that is going on that I think you will want to know about. One is the FCC and robocalls. The other one has to do with Instagram and some issues that are going on there. We've got that and more. Drop in your comments, your questions. We'll be right back with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Again, thank you for joining us. Drop in your comments and your suggestions or your questions or whatever you have on whatever platform you're watching, and we'll certainly address those as we go through the show because we are live, and that's part of the fun of this show as we get to talk to you and with you. And I'm Greg Nibbler, joined now by Matt Katz. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Greg.
Once again, a lot going on in the news, in particular some things that I think are going to affect all of us, and kind of want to walk through some of these important issues that you've got for us.
All right, so first off, robocalls.
Robocalls.
We all love robocalls.
Everybody wants more robocalls, I'm sure.
I probably get like 15 a day. It's insane. So yesterday, the FCC moved to make foreign robocalls illegal. So what that means is if a robocall is coming from another country, and millions of them do every single day, the FCC would finally be able to go after them. It's not clear if this would actually stop robocalls coming from these countries, but it is a good step forward, and hopefully it'll reduce them a little bit so you're not getting, like I said, 15 a day.
Why were we not able to go after foreign robocalls before?
It wasn't technically illegal. So beforehand, it was just a call. It was a call coming from a foreign country, and you can't ban calls coming from foreign countries unless you formally make it illegal. So the FCC is going to be voting on that rule change, I believe, next month. And once that happens, they'll be able to go after some of these companies that are sending out robocalls. That being said, some of these are coming from smaller countries. Mauritania in Africa is one where a lot come from.
Really?
And it's not really clear how much jurisdiction the FCC would have in being able to stop these calls. But they're working on it. As we've said before, robocalls are the #1 complaint that the FCC gets every single year for the past couple of years. You've probably complained about it to the FCC, and they're really the only ones that can do anything about it. So hopefully this is a step in a positive direction.
I think that's an interesting aspect of, like you said, a country like Mauritania. Like, how are you going to go in and actually stop them from doing that if their government is like, no, whatever?
Yeah, there's a few ways. You can put sanctions on a country. They probably wouldn't go that far. But what they could do is if a company from Mauritania has business dealings in the U.S., they could go after them that way. There's a few different ways that they can do it. I think eventually there might be some way of actually detecting and blocking these robocalls. But the one thing we have seen is that the people that send out millions of robocalls every day are always one step ahead of authorities. That's why they keep on coming through. So there might be some action that the FCC can take, but most likely these people will get around it.
And we have seen more action being taken lately by the FCC, right, to address some of these robocall issues. I mean, they're finally on board with, we got to do something.
Yeah, and it's a politically polarized time. The FCC is made up of both Democrats and Republicans, and what's one issue they can agree on?
Yeah.
We don't like robocalls. I think pretty much everyone can agree that we don't like robocalls. This is something they can actually take action on. Congress has taken some action as well, because it's something that you can really easily point to and say, like, hey, I'm working to make those calls less annoying.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody's anti-robocall. I mean, the pro-robocall contingent, I'm doubting they have that much sway.
Yeah, they're probably just the people making money off of robocalls.
That's true.
Those are largely people trying to scam, especially elderly people.
Yeah.
So not the greatest humans, I would say.
Not the best political stance to take, pro-robocall. Well, that's good, at least seeing something going on with that. So again, you can follow along too at digitaltrends.com. We've got you up to date on all of that news. Something else that's definitely trending today has to do with Instagram and some changes that they're making.
Yeah, so Instagram is a popular platform, especially among teens. And unfortunately, Instagram is also the most popular platform for cyberbullying among teens. It's a huge problem. I think something like 1 in 5 teens in a survey from a couple of years ago said that they had been cyberbullied on Instagram. So it's something that Instagram itself is really aware of and is trying to move forward with some proactive ways of stopping it. So the latest feature that they rolled out yesterday, it's still rolling out to some people's accounts, is they'll essentially shame you or guilt you if you try to post negative comments. So an insult, something nasty, anything like that. You can see you're going to get a little message saying, are you sure you want to post this?
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to be nasty on the internet? And you're going to have to confirm that before you can actually post that comment.
I like that it's something at least somewhat of a step, although they still allow you to post that comment. I'm wondering what kind of algorithm they're running it through to tell that, this is a This is a jerk comment right here.
So it's an AI algorithm. They say that they've used it to detect inappropriate content before. One thing we're going to be doing on digitaltrends.com is actually testing out this algorithm and seeing what causes it to go off and what doesn't. Like most AI algorithms, I would not be shocked if it doesn't catch everything, and it does catch thing that probably shouldn't be swept up in this net. But at the same time, if it's catching some things and it's stopping, a couple of people from cyberbullying, that's pretty good.
Right.
Instagram itself says that they've tested this for a little while and that it actually dissuades people from posting these comments.
Makes
I'm sure
you
if
think
you're,
just even for a second.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping that that's the case. We're going to be monitoring it to see if there's actually a decrease in cyberbullying on Instagram, because as you've probably seen, negative comments on people's posts, especially if you're not like some sort of big mega account with thousands of followers, can be really hurtful, and it really sucks.
Yep. We have Read 'em and Weep here every day where we read the comments. But with that side, how are we going to be testing this? Are we going to bully somebody internally?
Well, we're gonna try out some different lines. Not we're not actually going to be insulting someone, but we are going to see what sets it off and what doesn't. We're going to have an article on Digital Trends. Once this rolls out fully, so like I said, it's still rolling out. We're going to have a better idea of how it works and what sets it off.
I think, the more that they can use this and the more that algorithm can learn from it, probably the better in the long run. I think we can all agree that bullying sucks and needs to be stopped. So I think that's great. I think it's at least a step. I would like to see Twitter also work on a little more of this, although they're slowly doing some stuff.
Yeah, Twitter's making a few rule changes. They announced one today, actually, that they are banning hate speech against religious groups.
Oh, good.
Which you would have thought was banned before.
Yeah.
But yes, now you can't say hateful things about specific religious groups on Twitter. Like Instagram, like Facebook. People find ways to break these rules all the time, so we'll see how effective this rule change is. But it is, these are all steps in trying to make the internet a less hateful and more positive place, which is an admirable goal, even if it might not entirely work.
Well, any step is good, I feel, on that. Well, Matt, thank you for bringing us up to date on the news. And as always, at Digital Trends, follow along for all the latest news in tech. We've got it all right there. And Matt, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
And here's what's going to happen next. For everybody watching live, we're going to take a quick break, and we can take your comments as we go through the show. But we have a very special guest joining us. Next, we've got Joseph Mann, the author of Cult of the Dead Cow. And we're going to talk about hacktivism. We're going to talk about that group in particular, what it means, whether corporations should be listening to hackers right now. There's some Beto O'Rourke in there. We're going to talk about a lot of things, and very excited for this next conversation. If you have questions, please drop those into the chat. We'll be back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And we are back with more Digital Trends Live. Again, thank you for joining us. Appreciate everybody who joins each day for these tech headlines and news and interviews and discussions that we get to have with you, broadcasting live, and that's part of the fun of this. And we have a great interview coming up right now. I'm very excited to be welcoming to the show Joseph Menn, investigative reporter at Reuters and also author of Cult of the Dead Cow. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
This is such a fascinating look at technology and kind of the history of a very influential group. And for everybody watching, can we get a little bit of a background, maybe on you as well, as far as how you became interested in this, and then what led to you wanting to write about Cult of the Dead Cow?
Right. So my day job is I'm an investigative reporter at Reuters. I've covered cybersecurity, hacking, cyber warfare for the 20 years. So I'm one of the old guys that's been doing this for a long time. And I guess the real genesis of this is that in 2010, I wrote a book called Fatal System Error. And that was about, Russian organized crime being in cahoots with the Russian government and the internet basically being indefensible. And it was like, a fun story with some Russian bad guys who go to jail. But the underlying point was that basically we're all screwed and that cybersecurity is not fixable. And that sold a lot of copies. And since then, there have been lots of other books saying we're screwed in this way, we're screwed in that way, this is unfixable, that's a disaster. And all that's, a lot of that's true. But I wanted to do something positive. I wanted to do something more helpful and shine a light on something that worked and that we can replicate and try and make things better. And the Cult of the Dead Cow is terrific for that because they go all the way back. They're still around. They go back 35 years, and they have contributed in all these different ways in the public sector, private sector, nonprofits to making our world safer and more secure. And most people haven't heard of them still. So it was a good way to sort of shine a light on good stuff that's happening and maybe give people ideas for what to do next.
Right. Instead of, the Russians are invading, we're screwed. And I totally understand that. I mean, they're also important. But when it comes to Cult of the Dead Cow, I think you're right. Like, a lot of people still don't know who they are, which this book's going to change a lot of that. But can you give everybody watching just kind of a brief history of what this group is and what they do?
So they start way back before there's AOL, getting everybody online, and so it was bulletin boards. If you got online, then it was a pain in the butt. You used 300 baud modems to connect. One of the people who did that there, you're showing a picture of, is Beto O'Rourke. So he was one of the earliest members of the group. This is mid 80s. And it evolved multiple times. So initially it was like funny text files. And so early adopters were doing this. It was a real pain. You really needed to connect. Started in Lubbock, Texas. And then they drew more influential technological minds in, people who were in the loft, primarily in Boston, who famously testified to Congress in '98 that any of them could take down the internet in half an hour. But some really, really brilliant people. And around that time, Microsoft bundled TCP/IP into Windows 95. And like computer security, which had been kind of like a niche issue, was suddenly important to everybody. And Microsoft was a monopoly. So what they did was cause a media spectacle to embarrass Microsoft and force them to take security more seriously. So they put on these costumes. They did these performance art pieces at DEF CON in costume and threw CDs with Trojans into the crowd so anybody could hijack a Windows box. And so that's how they became famous about 20 years ago.
Wow. I mean, just that alone, just that little snippet is fascinating on them. I mean, so this hacker group, they start, like you said, 1984. Just a quick side note, can you explain the name Cult of the Dead Cow? Where did that come from?
Sure. So we're talking largely teenage boys here. Beto O'Rourke brought in a girl, but it was mostly teenage boys. And, it needed to have a little edginess. And there was this abandoned slaughterhouse that they occasionally hung out in Lubbock, Texas. So they were trying to come up with some name that would stick, and that's what they came up with. So it's a reference to that creepy hangout. So their style was CDC, little c, capital D, little c. They had a lot of sort of like graphic artists in the group. And what's interesting is that in the beginning, as I said, they weren't all tech geniuses. It was kind of like the liberal arts wing of the Hacker Underground. And so people read them because they were funny and made fun of some of the more elite hackers. And then eventually they became that. They attracted all these elite hackers. So famous 20 years ago. And then after that, they did all these great things, too, that most people don't know about. So one of them, Mudge, who was also in the loft, went to DARPA, the folks that brought you the internet, the sort of the Pentagon Skunk Works, and he created a program whereby the DARPA could give like small grants to individual hackers or like groups of 2 or 3. And it was a way to serve the country if you wanted to, on offense or defense, come up with some really cool cyber thing. Another of them started a company called Veracode, which allowed for the first time big software buyers to see what the binaries in their code that they bought were actually doing, as opposed to what the source code thought they were supposed to be doing. And then they invented hacktivism, which is they defined as security work in service of human rights. So they prompted some of the developments in Tor, the anonymity tool, endorsed by Edward Snowden, and they sort of helped shape the idea behind the Citizen Lab, which is this great outfit in Canada, the University of Toronto, that tracks governments using spyware against their own citizens. So they've had this far-reaching impact, and a lot of people who were trained by them are now inside these big companies. Microsoft, Apple, either were helped by CDC or people who were trained by CDC.
I mean, it seems like, going from just kind of these, weird teenagers that had, wanted to name it the Cult of the Dead Cow, all of a sudden there are these prolific actors in this entire world, corporate world included, and government. I mean, DARPA, I mean, that's huge. Talking about just where hacktivism is now, I guess to use that term, if that's still appropriate, white hat hackers, how much value do you think there is still for corporations to follow what they're doing? I mean, Microsoft has certainly changed what they were doing. Do you think that still applies today?
Sure. So it absolutely does. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, is that it seems that while, Apple was founded by hackers, people who sold blue boxes to steal phone service, a lot of the sort of the hacker roots have been lost at all these big companies. So, it's partially just, the sort of the passage of time and so forth, and complexity in the companies now. But they're big corporations that are about profit. And these old school hackers were always thinking about sort of like the greater good, like sharing knowledge, making sure that people in China had access to the internet without censorship. And I think the big companies who are in a lot of moral trouble with their own employees very commonly now sort of would do well to revisit this sort of ethos of achieving public good. Law and medicine have pro bono traditions, and engineering doesn't. It sort of got this free pass because it was great for the economy and the gizmos were cool. But since 2016, people are really giving it a harder look. And I think they should be influenced by the hacktivists. Now, the hacktivism label itself is used by a lot of different groups to mean a lot of different things. Anonymous used it when it was DDoSing payment processors that weren't giving donations to WikiLeaks. Others have used it when they hack into spyware manufacturers and dump their goods. They're committing crimes under the name of hacktivism. You can argue about a lot of this stuff, but I think it's important that people discuss it. I think it's a really vibrant idea still.
Well, your book's certainly going to help along with that. I mean, it's really just such a fascinating story. I'm glad that you went out and found it. How much access did you have to some of these former hackers? Do you have interviews with them, or were they open about it?
Yeah, so I was working on this for 3 years, and some of these people I'd known before because I've been one of the leading cybersecurity reporters. They knew my work. They'd read my earlier books. They saw the investigative stories I did, exposing backdoors at RSA and other companies, and they knew I was sort of equal opportunity. I wrote nasty stuff about China, Russia, the U.S., Anonymous, whatever. And so over time, I explained what I was trying to do, and they bought into it. And so a pleasant surprise to me was that every single person from CDC who's in the book let me use their real name. And most of them, including Beto O'Rourke, and most of them had never been outed before. So that was really nice. I mean, they're psyched about the book. And InfoSec in general, security community is pretty psyched about the book.
That is really incredible. I mean, I think it's a fantastic book. And Joseph, for anybody who wants to get it, what's the best way to get it? Where do you want to direct people? If there's any particular place you want to direct them?
So, I guess, your local bookstore would be a great place. They're happy to order it if they don't have it in stock. They probably have it in stock if it's a bookstore of any size. And then, it's available in audio and ebook and every other format you can imagine. And of course, the big internet booksellers have it.
Well, Joseph, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this. I can't wait to read the book. I'm going to be getting it today. Fascinating look at such an important part of tech history and really applies to today as well. And thanks for all that you do. Thanks for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Well, thanks very much for having me. Appreciate it.
that is just a really, really fascinating interview that we're having right here, talking to Joseph Menn, investigative reporter at Reuters. Don't forget that as well. So all of his reporting on that side. Really, really cool stuff. And this is what we get to bring you here with Digital Trends Live. And we do that because you are watching. And that's why we thank you for that. Because you're watching, we get to bring you these really interesting stories and tales and discussions that we get to have on here. And we've got more for you. So what's going to happen is we're going to take a break and we'll regroup. We've got some more news for you. We've got an anniversary of a video game that changed everything we'll talk about. And we've got another interview coming up. All that and more. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. This is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us. So much fun to have you here and to talk about some different news stories and bring you up to date on things that are going on in the world of technology that could be affecting you. And wherever you're finding us on the internet, that is what I want to talk about next, is the internet. So here is the deal. We all know that there's a few different companies that are working on bringing you different ways to get the internet, different ways to get broadband. We know that 5G at some point might be a way that we'll get it. But in the meantime, there are companies working to increase the access to broadband internet, which is so important for a lot of people. And we have Starlink, who has been working on this, which is the subsidiary of SpaceX, essentially, that's working on bringing you satellite internet. There's OneWeb, which is a British company that's going to bring you, wants to bring you satellite internet. And there's also Amazon. Lest you forget, Amazon announced, I believe it was back in April, that their subsidiary, Kuiper Systems, would be wanting to launch satellites to also bring broadband satellite internet. And they have taken one more step toward that right now. So they filed an application with the FCC on last Thursday, which officially meant that they can now obtain permission to launch 3,236 broadband satellites into low Earth orbit. Presumably, they'll be using their Blue Origin rockets. We don't know exactly how far along Blue Origin is. They've certainly been testing a lot of things. They release some videos every now and then, but they're a little more secretive than SpaceX. So when they're going to be able to actually get these up, that's a little bit of an issue. Now, another issue that comes down to this when we talk about satellite internet is how many satellites are going to be up there and how many we're looking at, because Starlink's looking at, I believe, 13,000 is what their goal is. And then you have Amazon now Amazon Kuiper Systems, which wants to launch 3,236. Now, their goal is not for worldwide internet. Starlink wants to go worldwide. Kuiper Systems is really focusing on one area, and that is the United States. So they think that they would be able to cover the majority of the U.S. with broadband, with the exception of Alaska. Sorry, Anchorage, you're not going to get it. Your internet still sucks if you've ever been up there. But this would be better for everybody else for the lower 48, where you would be able to get broadband internet access anywhere. And if you think about any rural community, that is such a huge issue. So I love seeing more companies trying to solve that, however it may be. You have Google with Loon, Project Loon, where they're trying to use basically giant blimps to bring internet to remote areas. They're going to be testing that out in Kenya. You've got Amazon that now wants to test out their satellites over the U.S. in particular. Starlink is slowly launching theirs. They've already started launching, but slowly getting those up there to bring their internet access everywhere. And you've got all these different companies trying it. I hope one of them is successful in it, and maybe the competition will actually help out with that. But more broadband internet access for everyone is absolutely something that I think we can all agree with is good for all of us. So good to see where that's going. Again, that's Amazon. They filed their official notification with the FCC, their application, and to obtain permission to launch their satellites. We'll see where it goes. We'll keep you up to date here at Digital Trends. All right, continuing on with some more news here. Let's take a look at a couple other things I wanted to bring you up to date. You know that I like talking about robots here on Digital Trends. This is my opportunity to do it, so I'm going to bring you up to date on it. And we also talk about the convergence of food and technology and different ways that we're increasing yields of crops and also just reducing waste, which is such an important thing. And you combine that with some machine learning and some artificial intelligence, and you get what we have right here. This is from the University of Cambridge, and it's what they're coining as the Vegibot. I love the names of these robots. So the Vegibot. Here's how this works. The reason this matters. Now, if you watch this video, what they're trying to do is actually, in particular, pick lettuce. Lettuce is what they're going after with this one. Lettuce is a big crop in the UK. And the problem with it is trying to figure out, ways to be more efficient, is that it's a really hard crop to pick when it comes to robotics. Now, if you look at that patch, a human is tremendously faster in that you can take a look at a head of lettuce, ascertain whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's ripe, whether it's not, and pick it, throw it into a basket, and then you keep on your way. For a robot to be able to do that, for artificial intelligence to be able to analyze that, is a really complex problem. It's got to be able to take a look at all of those different things, be able to analyze everything that I just said previously, but then also be able to cut it without smashing it or destroying it or making it unusable. That's a lot of complex issues that are going on there, and University of Cambridge has actually finally figured out a way to do this, although it's very, very slow. But the technology behind it is something that's could be applied to a lot of different things. And so there's two main components to the Vegibot from University of Cambridge. One is a computer vision system, and the other is the cutting system. Two major issues that would happen. So the computer vision system, the way it works, is it takes a look at the entire row of lettuce, and then each individual head of lettuce, it can determine, okay, does that one have a disease? Does that one not ripe? And can analyze that. And then the cutting system is able to gingerly cut this head of lettuce without destroying it. You still have to have some people walking along with it now, so this is a long ways out before we're going to be seeing this utilized everywhere. But the idea behind it, again, that's the important takeaway that I want you to have from this, is that they could eventually do it. Once they get this thing up to scale, once it could work fast, I mean, clearly they can work 24 hours a day. We've got labor shortages when it comes to picking our food, to agriculture. This could help with that. And also, since they can work 24 hours a day, if something's not ripe, it can make another pass. Whereas humans, it's just too tedious to be able to do that side of it. And this would never get tired. So that's one way that I feel like eventually it could actually help our labor shortages and also help increase our yield of crops and reduce that waste, where we just don't have as much waste and we can get more out into the market. So that's something from University of Cambridge, pretty cool cutting edge technology that they're working on. You can follow up at digitaltrends.com. And we're talking about cutting edge technology. Let's go back just a little bit. Let's go back actually a ways. Let's go back to 1981. And I wanted to bring this up today because it is the anniversary of something, a video game that really changed a lot that we sometimes may get a little overlooked. A lot of times you think about Pac-Man, as being one of the big game changers. Well, this is something else, and it is Donkey Kong. July 9th, 1981 in Japan was when Donkey Kong, the arcade game, was officially released. And they didn't know how this was going to work at first, and eventually it did get over to the US later that year. And they had a lot of issues with getting it out as far as licensing and different concerns that they had, but there's so many specific things about this game that I wanted to bring up that are pretty unique, and also just a little bit of trivia for you before we go on with the show. So Donkey Kong, again, launched in 1981. Nintendo was a playing card and toy company before that. They were trying to get a hit video game. They wanted to get one in North America. So they launched this in Japan first. And something that's unique about this game, a couple of really specific things, as far as gameplay, it was the first one where you really built up to a story. Each level told a story, where the story was essentially Donkey Kong was a pet gorilla who took the girlfriend of what was then known as Jumpman. That was Mario's name before it became Mario. That was Jumpman, and this story carried on for each level, so it actually transferred through to that. And that's something that kind of mantra, that way that game worked, was something that was utilized for so many games after that, of telling a story. Okay, some bad guy took this thing or this person, and the good guy's got to go get them. Jumpman which later became Mario, was not even supposed to have a name originally. It was supposed to be all about Donkey Kong. And then the popularity of that little character started growing so much that they actually eventually gave it the name Mario. And on top of that, the specifically the graphics on how that worked, that is something that was pretty unique. I just want to give you that of how Mario got some of these specific, the iconic imagery of this guy in overalls with a mustache and a hat. Well, the reason was graphics. They wanted to showcase something more with facial expressions, which they could do with Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong himself has facial expressions. This character was too small, so they had to cover up the mouth. They couldn't do that, so they just put a mustache on him. So that way the mustache would be what they could move around. And then because it was also so small, they couldn't really do much with the head, so they put a hat. So they slapped a hat on him to just cover that up and just made it way easier so they could differentiate on the pixels. And then as far as the outfit, they wanted to show his hands and arms moving, but they really couldn't do it with a normal outfit, so they had to put him in overalls, and that's how they got over that problem. So it was just one big blob of color, and you could differentiate between the arms right there. So the arms were different colors, so you could show them moving against the overalls. That's just a little bit of history, a little bit of trivia for you today about Donkey Kong. Again, July 9th, 1981. That is when that game came out. Changed a lot. There's been who knows how many iterations of those two games and Mario spin-offs since then, but something to know about today, July 9th, 1981. All right, you're watching Digital Trends Live, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. We always appreciate it. We like talking about cutting-edge technology, and we like having these conversations live and direct with you, and that is part of the fun, and we're going to have a conversation right now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Joining us, we have Gavin Delaney, who is the CEO and founder of Stride. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. I love what we're going to talk about now because, one, I love traveling. I love finding out different ways and better ways and more efficient ways to travel. And that seems like what we're going to be going down the road of here. And I thought for everybody who's watching live, could we get just a little bit of your background and what led you to found this company?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from a professional standpoint, my background is I started off working in the hotel industry in the early days, the early 2000s, when the internet was still kind of relatively new for the travel industry. And then I went on to work at companies like Kayak and Viator, which was eventually sold to TripAdvisor for a couple $100 million. Viator is the largest day tour marketplace. So my background has really sort of been mostly in travel, for the last almost 20 years now. On a personal level, starting Stride really came from a personal journey. I was looking to do the Inca Trail trek to Machu Picchu. Have you done that?
I have not.
I highly recommend it. It's amazing. But when you do it, you actually need to use a tour operator. You have to get a special guide. The Peruvian government has licenses and requirements there. And so as I was looking to do that, I take my traveling seriously. I wanted to make sure it was the best experience possible. And there was no easy website to allow me to compare the different tour operators and the different sort of experts and guides that could take you on that Inca Trail trek. And, TripAdvisor doesn't, Expedia doesn't, Travelocity, all the major, companies, they just don't offer that type of travel experience. And so seeing that hole was really what, was the genesis of creating Stride.
That's really interesting. That's the one where you go from Cusco, right? And then you hike up to Machu Picchu.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, that would be a hard thing to try to figure out, I guess, before there's any kind of guides up there. So you see this hole, and that's just one example of just Machu Picchu, and then there's all kinds of different ones that are out there. How do you go about filling that hole of getting that information on all of these different, maybe random guides that are up there that you can take?
Yeah. It's so we do it in a couple of different ways. I mean, the good thing is now in 2019, there are literally thousands of tour operators, professional expert companies that have organized and planned both sort of fixed departure date group tours, as well as, have basic outlines of itineraries for customizable or tailor-made trips. So these thousands of companies exist. The trick is finding them. So there are some large global brands out there. For those types of companies, we connect via an API and just pull all that data straight into the website. For other ones, we're able to do kind of screen scraping and pull information, off of their websites. And we still have smaller and local tour operators and guides, maybe just two guys and a safari Jeep in Tanzania. And we'll get them and manually load that data into our platform and then make that easily searchable and comparable and ultimately bookable online for the traveler. And that's really the value, because there's so many different types, right? Right now we offer over 30,000 unique itineraries that go to every continent, almost every country, from budget to luxury, high adventure to classic, comfort-focused travel experiences. So that's what really the value that we bring is, making sort of the infinite variety of types of adventurous and experiential travel easy to find your perfect needle in the haystack.
So if somebody were to go on and say, I'll just throw out an example just for something. I want to go to Madagascar. Like, I would be able to go on there. Like, what would that process be like? I have no idea where I want to go or anything about it, but I just want to go to Madagascar. What happens then?
So you would literally just type in Madagascar in our search box. You actually have two options. You could just type in Madagascar, and then you'll see we've got, a range of trips. You could then go in and filter down to see, I want it to be in this price range. I want it to be this physical level. I want it to be at this pace, because one thing that's really important for people is some people want to have a really hardcore itinerary, right? They get up at 6 a.m. They're out sightseeing or doing physical activities by 7:30 a.m. They want to maximize daylight. And then the opposite extreme, right? You got people like, hey, I'm on vacation. I want to see Madagascar, but, I want to sleep late, take time to enjoy a nice breakfast, and then, go out and see some things, but come back early and be able to have time for relaxing too. So we have these different filters that allow people to find that type of trip. Now, the other way you can do it is you can use our new Trip Finder product. And what we do there is you can go onto our homepage at stridetravel.com and you click the Find It For Me. And you've got Rover, the Stride Travel guide dog. He's our little digital AI assistant who will help you then find that perfect trip. So he'll ask you a few questions about how you like to travel, where you want to go. And you can skip questions if you don't have a specific answer to that. And then he will bring back, of those thousands of options, he'll bring you back the 3 best. And, you can always sort of optimize further from there. And it's that simple. You can find that great trip every detail's been planned out for you in just a couple of minutes.
And then just show up and it's all taken care of, and that's just go on your way. Wow, that is pretty impressive. Where do you go from here then? So now you've got, I think you said, was it 30,000 and 38,000 different trips that are on there? And then are you planning to expand that? I'm sure probably, but what other kinds of areas do you see this going into?
Yeah, so we're expanding in a couple of different ways. So we have 30,000 unique itineraries today in a platform, and they're from over 1,000 different tour operators and guides. So we're going to expand both the number of guides. There's about 2,000 of meaningfully sized ones in the, that service English-speaking travelers. Obviously, once you start going to Chinese travelers, Korean, French, German, Spanish, that's another way we will expand, is going into other languages and international travelers who have different travel tastes and styles. But we'll also expand into the type of travel. So most of what we offer today is multi-day group tours, right? That's like, it could be a small group adventure, like 8 people and a guide. It could be people that are geared towards people in their 20s with a sort of partying and a fun atmosphere, like a lot of nightlife thrown in with the sightseeing. Or it can be older travelers, baby boomers who, they were the first backpacker generation in the 60s, but now in their, golden years, they want to have a more professionally organized travel experience, and they like the social aspect of being with groups. So that's where we sort of started. Now we've gotten into custom trips, tailor-made. And so one of the things we'll be launching in the next 2 months is a brand new feature, sort of like our Trip Finder, but for custom trips, where we match you, the traveler, with a local expert trip planner. So they will work with you to plan a completely customized itinerary. You can get into as much detail of that process or as little as you want. So for a honeymoon, or just you want to have a special trip, we'll match you with that individual human expert. So you can have the confidence to know, hey, this is the right person to plan that trip for me, right? You don't want to just go to an old travel agent like 20 years ago who happens to brick and mortar have a store on your main street, right? That's sort of irrelevant. You don't care where that person is who's planning your trip. You just need to know that they're an expert in the destination. You want to know they're an expert in Madagascar.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So that's what
go ahead. Sorry, the beauty of the internet. Well, it's really fascinating what you've been able to create. I'll certainly be taking a look, and now I want to go to Madagascar after just randomly picking that. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. But it's slidetravel.com. Is that the correct website?
Stridetravel.com, like a big step.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us, to talk about this. Stridetravel.com. Go there, take a look at it. Congratulations on everything you've created. And thanks for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
All right, that's fun. So yeah, we're gonna have to figure out Madagascar, obviously. So stridetravel.com, somebody who's launched a platform right there. Let's continue on and kind of go back a little bit, talk about what we had in the beginning of the show. So we had Mr. Sam Slaughter in here joining us and talking about bringing us up to date on several different things in the news. Clearly there's the Google and Amazon have kind of reached a truce on YouTube being on Fire TV sticks. And then we also have, I'm taking a look at a comment right now. Thank you, Ronald. Ronald just said, "You guys rock." I appreciate that. We're stopping everything to make sure we acknowledge that. Ronald, thanks for joining us. And also we had Amazon Fire TV sticks. They're going to have YouTube on there. Google Chromecast will now have Prime Video on there as well. So that's something to keep up to date on. Sam Slaughter from The Manual. Follow him. Slaughter writes. And continue on also on today's show, wanted to remind you that we have our Prime Video coverage that's coming up on July 15th, Monday, July 15th. We will have a lot of coverage happening with that, both on digitaltrends.com and here for DT Live. So make sure you don't forget about that and keep up to date with that. We had Anurag Lal from Infinite Convergence talking about data breaches when it comes to secure apps and secure communication, the importance of that, some of the issues we followed. We have Matt Katz bringing us up to date on the FCC and robocalls, and also Instagram with their new AI anti-bullying platform. We had Joseph Min, the author of Cult of the Dead Cow. He's an investigative reporter for Reuters and expert when it comes to hackers. This is a really unique story. I'm going to bet this is going to be a movie at some point because it's too fascinating. So Cult of the Dead Cow, really cool having him here on the show. Also joining us, Gavin Delaney, who is just on there, stridetravel.com, CEO and co-founder of that, with kind of a different, unique way to customize some of your travel options. I want to thank everybody who joins us here every day. Again, we really do appreciate it. We broadcast live every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. We bring you all this content, interviews. We try to get you up to date on everything you need to know about and really maybe learn something throughout the day. And that's part of the fun of this. And you can follow digitaltrends.com, keep up to date on everything in the world of technology right there, wherever you are at. And thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more Digital Trends Live.